Thomas Watson, Ten Commandments. Preface to the Ten Commandments. Second part of the preface. 2. Which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Egypt and the house of bondage are the same, only they are represented to us under different expressions. The first expression is, quote, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Why does the Lord mention the deliverance of Israel out of Egypt? 1. Because of the strangeness of the deliverance. God delivered his people Israel by strange signs and wonders, by sending plague after plague upon Pharaoh, blasting the fruits of the earth, killing all the firstborn in Egypt. Exodus 12:29. When Israel marched out of Egypt, God made the waters of the sea to part and become a wall to his people, while they went on dry ground. And he made the same sea a causeway to Israel, and a grave to Pharaoh and his chariots. Well might the Lord make mention of this strange deliverance. He wrought miracle upon miracle for the deliverance of that people. 2. God mentions Israel's deliverance out of Egypt because of the greatness of the deliverance. He delivered Israel from the pollutions of Egypt. Egypt was a bad air to live in. It was infected with idolatry. The Egyptians were gross idolaters. They were guilty of that which the apostle speaks of in Romans 1:23. They changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like unto corruptible man, into birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. The Egyptians, instead of the true God, worshipped corruptible man. They deified their king Apis, forbidding all under pain of death to say that he was a man. They worshipped birds as the hawk. They worshipped beasts as the ox. They made the image of a beast to be their god. They worshipped creeping things as the crocodile and the Indian mouse. God mentions it before a signal favor to Israel, or mentions it therefore as a signal favor to Israel that he brought him out of such idolatrous country. Quote, I brought thee out of the land of Egypt. The thing I would note is that it is no small blessing to be delivered from places of idolatry. God speaks of it no less than 10 times in the Old Testament. Quote, I brought you out of the land of Egypt, an idolatrous place. Had there been no iron furnace in Egypt, yet so many altars being there and false gods, it was a great privilege to Israel to be delivered out of Egypt. Joshua reckons it among the chief and most memorable mercies of God to Abraham, that he brought him out of Ur of the Chaldees, where Abraham's ancestors served strange gods. Joshua 24:2-3. It is well for the plant that is set in a bad soil to be transplanted to a better. There it may grow and flourish. So it is a mercy when any who are planted among idolaters are removed and transplanted to Zion, where the silver drops of God's word make them grow in holiness. Wherein does it appear to be so great a blessing to be delivered from places of idolatry? 1. It is a great mercy because of our nature, which is prone to idolatry. Israel began to be defiled with the idols of Egypt. Ezekiel 22:3. Dry wood is not more prone to take fire than our nature is idolatry. The Jews made cakes to the Queen of Heaven, that is, to the moon. Jeremiah 7:15. Why is it that we are prone to idolatry? Because we are led much by visible objects, and love to have our senses pleased. Men naturally fancy a God that they may see, though it be such a God that cannot see them. Yet they would see it. The true God is invisible, which makes the idolater worship something that he can see. 2. It is a mercy to be delivered from idolatrous places because of the greatness of the sin of idolatry, which is giving that glory to an image which is due to God. All divine worship God appropriates to himself. It is a flower of his crown. The fat of the sacrifices is claimed by him. Leviticus 3:13. Divine worship is the fat of the sacrifice which he reserves for himself. The idolater devotes this worship to an idol, which the Lord will by no means endure. Quote, "My glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images." Isaiah 42:8. Idolatry is spiritual adultery. Quote, "With their idols they have committed adultery." Ezekiel 23:37. To worship any other than God is to break wedlock and makes the Lord disclaim his interest in a people. Quote, "Plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife." Hosea 2:2. Thy people have corrupted themselves. No more my people, but thy people. Exodus 32:7. God calls idolatry blasphemy. In this your fathers have blasphemed me. Idolatry is devil worship. Ezekiel 20:27 and 31. They sacrificed unto devils and not to God, to new gods. Deuteronomy 32:17. These new gods were old devils. Quote, "And they shall no more offer sacrifice unto devils." Leviticus 17:7. The Hebrew word la sarim is the hairy ones, because the devils were hairy and appeared in the forms of satyrs and goats. How dreadful a sin is idolatry, and what a signal mercy it is to be snatched out of an idolatrous place, as Lot was snatched by the angels out of Sodom. It is a mercy to be delivered out of an idolatrous place, thirdly, because idolatry is such a silly and irrational religion. I may say, as Jeremiah 8:9, quote, "What wisdom is in them? Is it not folly to refuse the best and choose the worst? The trees of the field in Jonathan's parable in Jotham's parable despise the vine tree, which cheers both God and man, and the olive which is full of fatness, and the fig tree which is full of sweetness, and choose the bramble to reign over them, which was a foolish choice." Judges 9. So it is for us to refuse the living God, who has power to save us, and to make choice of an idol that has eyes and sees not, feet but walks not. Psalm 115:6 and 7. What a prodigy of madness is this! Therefore, to be delivered from committing such folly is a mercy. 4. It is a mercy to be delivered from idolatrous places because of the sad judgments inflicted upon idolaters. This is a sin which enrages God and makes the fury to come up in his face. Ezekiel 38:18. Search through the whole book of God, and you shall find no sin he has followed with more plagues than idolatry. Quote, "Their sorrows may be multiplied and hastened after another God," or that hasten after another God. Psalm 16:4. Quote, "They moved him to jealousy with their graven images." Psalm 78:58. When God heard this, he was wroth, and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh. Verses 59 and 60. Shiloh was a city belonging to the tribe of Ephraim, where God set his name. Jeremiah 7:12. But for their idolatry God forsook the place, and gave his people up to the sword, caused his priests to be slain, and his ark to be carried away captive, never more to be returned. How severe was God against Israel for worshiping the golden calf? Exodus 32:27. The Jews say that every misery that befalls man, there's an ounce of the golden calf in it. Quote, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues." Revelation 18:4. Idolatry, lived in, cuts off men from heaven. 1 Corinthians 6:9. So then, it is no mercy to be delivered out of an idolatrous, no small mercy to be delivered out of an idolatrous place. Use 1. See the goodness of God to our nation in bringing us out of mystic Egypt, delivering us from popery, which is Romish idolatry, and causing the light of his truth to break forth gloriously among us. In former times, and more lately in the Marian days, England was overspread with idolatry. It worshipped God after a false manner, and it is idolatry not only to worship a false God, but the true God in a false manner. Such was our case formerly. We had purgatory, indulgences, the idolatrous mass, scriptures locked up in an unknown tongue, invocation of saints and angels, and image worship. Images are teachers of lies, Habakkuk 2:18. Wherein do they teach lies? They represent God who cannot be seen in a bodily shape. Quote, "Ye saw no similitude, only ye heard a voice." Deuteronomy 4:12. God cannot be pictured by any finger, not the soul even, being a spirit, much less God. Quote, "To whom then will ye liken God?" Isaiah 40:18. The papists say they worship God by the image, which is greatly absurd. For if it be absurd to fall down to the picture of a king when the king is present, much more to bow down to the image of God when God himself is present. Jeremiah 23:24. What is the popish religion but a bundle of ridiculous ceremonies? The wax, flowers, pyres, cream and oil, beads, crucifixes. What are these but Satan's policy, to dress up a carnal worship, fitted to carnal minds? Oh, what cause have we to bless God for delivering us from popery? It was a mercy to be delivered from the Spanish invasions and the gunpowder treason, but it is far greater to be delivered from the popish religion, which would have made God give us a bill of divorce. Use 2. If it be a great blessing to be delivered from the Egypt of popish idolatry, it shows the sin and follies of those who, being brought out of Egypt, are willing to return to it again. The apostle says, "Flee from idolatry," 1 Corinthians 10:14, but these rather flee to idolatry, and are herein like the people of Israel, who, notwithstanding all the idolatry and tyranny of Egypt, long to go back to Egypt. Quote, "Let us make a captain, and let us return to Egypt." Numbers 14:14. But how shall they go back into Egypt? How shall they have food in the wilderness? God will rain down man. Will God rain down man anymore? I think it meant to say manna. Manna anymore upon such rebels? How will they get over the Red Sea? Will God divide the water again by miracle, for such as leave his service and go into idolatrous Egypt? Yet they say, "Let us make a captain." And are there not such spirits among us who say, "Let us make a captain to go back to the Romish Egypt again"? If we do, what shall we get by it? I am afraid the leeks and onions of Egypt will make us sick. Do we ever suppose that if we drink in the cup of fornication, we shall drink in the cup of salvation? Oh, that any should so forfeit their reason as to enslave themselves to the see of Rome, and that they should be willing to hold a candle to a mass priest, and bow down to a strange god. Let us not say we will make a captain, but rather say as Ephraim, what have I to do any more with idols? Hosea 14:8. Use 3. If it be a mercy to be brought out of Egypt, it is not desirable or safe to plant one's self in an idolatrous place where it may be a capital crime to be seen with a Bible in our hands. Some, for secular gain, thrust themselves among idolaters, who think there is no danger to live where Satan's seat is. They pray God would not lead them into temptation, but lead themselves. They are in great danger of being polluted. It is hard to be as the fish which keeps fresh in salt waters. A man cannot dwell among blackamoors, but he will be discolored. You will sooner be corrupted by idolaters than they will be converted by you. Joseph got no good by living in idolatrous court. He did not teach Pharaoh to pray, but Pharaoh taught him to swear. Quote, they were mingled among the heathen and served their idols. Psalm 106:35 and 36. I fear it has been the undoing of many, that they have seated themselves amongst idolaters for advancing their trade, and at last have not only traded with them in their commodities, but their religion. Use 4. It is a mercy to be brought out of the land of Egypt, a defiled place, and where sin reigns. It reproaches such parents as show little love for the souls of their children, whether it be in putting them out to service or matching them. In putting them out to service, their care is chiefly for their bodies, that they may be provided for, and they care not what becomes of their souls. Their souls are in Egypt, in houses where there is drinking, swearing, Sabbath breaking, and where God's name is every day dishonored. In matching their children, they look at money. Be ye not unequally yoked, 2 Corinthians 6:14. If their children be equally yoked for estate, they care not whether they be unequally yoked for religion. Let such parents think how precious the soul of their child is, that it is immortal and capable of communion with God and angels. Will you let a soul be lost by placing it in a bad family? If you had a horse you loved, would you not put him in a stable you would not put him in a stable with other horses that were sick and diseased. And do you not love your child better than your horse? God has entrusted you with the souls of children. You have charge of souls. God says, 1 Kings 20:39, keep this man. If he be missing, then shall thy life be for his life. So God says, if the soul of thy child miscarry by thy negligence, his blood will I require at thy hand. Think of this, all ye parents. Take heed of placing your children in Egypt, in a wicked family. Do not put them in the devil's mouth. Seek for them a sober religious family such as Joshua's. Quote, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 14:15. Such a family as Cranmer's, which was a nursery of piety, a Bethel of which it may be said, quote, the church was in his house, Colossians 4:15. Use 5. Let us pray that God would keep our English nation from the defilements of Egypt, that it may not be again overspread with superstition and idolatry. Oh, sad religion, not only to have our estates, our bodies enslaved, but our consciences. Pray that the true Protestant religion may still nourish among us, that the sun of the gospel may still shine on our horizon. The gospel lifts a people up to heaven. It is the crown and glory of the kingdom. If this be removed, Ichabod, the glory is departed. The top of the beech tree being cut off, the whole body of the tree withers apace. So the gospel is the top of all our blessings. If this top be cut, the whole body politic will soon wither. Oh, pray that the Lord will continue the visible tokens of his presence among us, his ordinances, that England may be called Jehovah Shammah. The Lord is there. Ezekiel 48:35. Pray that righteousness and peace may kiss each other, that so glory may dwell in our land. Third, out of the house of bondage. Egypt and the house of bondage are the same, only they are expressed under a different notion. By Egypt is meant a place of idolatry and superstition. By the house of bondage is meant a place of affliction. Israel, while in Egypt, were under great tyranny. They had cruel taskmasters set over them, who put them to hard labor, and set them to make bricks, yet allowed them no straw. Therefore Egypt is called in Deuteronomy 4:20 the iron furnace, and here the house of bondage. From this expression, quote, I brought thee out of the house of bondage, two things are to be noted. God's children may sometimes be under sore afflictions in the house of bondage, but God will, in due time, bring them out of their afflicted state. I brought thee out of the house of bondage. God's children may sometimes be under sore afflictions in the house of bondage. God's people have no writ of ease granted them, no charter of exemption from trouble in this life. While the wicked are kept in sugar, the godly are often kept in brine. And indeed, how could God's power be seen in bringing them out of trouble if he did not sometimes bring them into it? Or how should God wipe away the tears from their eyes in heaven if on earth they shed none? Doubtless God sees there is need that his children should be sometimes in the house of bondage. Quote, if need be, ye are in heaviness for a time in manifold temptations. 1 Peter 1:6. The body sometimes needs a bitter portion to make more than a sweet one, or a bitter portion more than a sweet one. Why does God let his people be in the house of bondage or in an afflicted state? One, he does it for probation or trial, who led thee through that terrible wilderness, that he might humble thee and prove thee. Deuteronomy 8:15 and 16. Affliction is the touchstone of sincerity. Thou, O God, hast proved us. Thou hast tried us as silver. Thou laidst affliction upon our loins. Psalm 66:10 and 11. Hypocrites may embrace the true religion and prosperity, and court this queen while she has a jewel hung at her ear, but he is a good Christian who can keep close to God in a time of suffering. Quote, all this has come upon us, yet we have not forgotten thee. Psalm 44:17. To love God in heaven is no wonder, but to love him when he chastises us discovers sincerity. 2. For purgation, to purge our corruption. Quote, and this is all the fruit to take away his sin. Isaiah 28:9. The eye, though a tender part, yet when sore, we put sharp powders and waters into it to eat out the pearl. So, though the people of God are dear to him, yet when corruption brings or begins to grow in them, he will apply the sharp powder of affliction to eat out the pearl of the eye. Affliction is God's flail to thresh off our husks. It is a means God uses to purge out sloth, luxury, pride, and the love of the world. God's furnace is in Zion. Isaiah 31:5. This is not to consume, but to refine. What if we have more affliction, if by this means we have less sin? 3. For augmentation, to increase the graces of the Spirit. Graces thrive most in the iron furnace. Sharp frosts nourish the corn, so sharp afflictions nourish grace. Grace in the saints is often as fire hid in the embers. Affliction is the bellows to blow it up into a flame. The Lord makes the house of bondage to a friend to grace. Then faith and patience act their part. The darkness of the night cannot hinder the brightness of a star, so the more the diamond is cut, the more it sparkles, and the more God afflicts us, the more our graces cast a sparkling luster. 4. For preparation, to fit and prepare the saints for glory. 2 Corinthians 4:17. The stones which are cut out for a building are first hewn and squared. The godly are called living stones, 1 Peter 2:5. God first hews and polishes them by affliction, that they may be fit for the heavenly building. The house of bondage prepares for the house made not with hands. 2 Corinthians 5:1. The vessels of mercy are seasoned with affliction, and then the wine of glory is poured in. How the afflictions of the godly differ from the afflictions of the wicked. Or how do they? 1. They are but castigations, but those on the wicked are punishments. The one from a father, the other from a judge. 2. Afflictions on the godly are fruits of covenant mercy. 2 Samuel 7:17. Afflictions on the wicked are the effects of God's wrath. Quote, he has much wrath with his sickness. Ecclesiastes 5:17. Afflictions on the wicked are the pledge and earnest of hell. They are like the pinioning of a malefactor, which presages his execution. 3. Afflictions on the godly make them better, but afflictions on the wicked make them worse. The godly pray more. Psalm 131. The wicked blaspheme more. Quote, men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of God. Revelation 16:9. Afflictions on the wicked make them more impenitent. Every plague upon Egypt increased the plague of hardness in Pharaoh's heart. To what prodigy of wickedness do some persons come after great sickness? Affliction on the godly is like bruising spices, which are the more sweet and fragrant. Affliction on the wicked is like pounding weeds with a pestle, which makes them more unsavory. Use 1. We are not to wonder to see Israel in the house of bondage. 1 Peter 4:12. The holiness of the saints will not excuse them from sufferings. Christ was the Holy One of God, yet he was in the iron furnace. His spouse is a lily among thorns. Song of Solomon 2:2. Though his sheep have an earmark of election upon them, yet they may have their wool fleeced off. The godly have some good in them, therefore the devil afflicts them, and some evil in them, therefore God afflicts them. While there are two seeds in the world, expect to be under the black rod. The gospel tells us of reigning, but first of suffering. 2 Timothy 2:12. 2. Affliction is not always the sign of God's anger. Israel, the apple of God's eye, a peculiar treasure to him above all people, were in the house of bondage. Exodus 19:15. We are apt to judge and censor those who are in an afflicted state. When the barbarians saw the vipers on Paul's hand, they said, "No doubt this man is a murderer." Acts 28:4. So when we see the viper of affliction fasten upon the godly, we are apt to censor them and say, "These are greater sinners than others, and God hates them." But this rash censoring is for want of wisdom. Were not Israel in the house of bondage? Was not Jeremiah in the dungeon, and Paul a night and a day in the deep? God's afflicting is so far from evidencing hatred that his not afflicting does. Quote, "I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom," Hosea 4:14. God punishes most when he does not punish. His hand is heaviest when it seems to be lightest. The judge will not burn him in the hand whom he intends to execute. 3. If God's own Israel may be in the house of bondage, then afflictions do not of themselves demonstrate a man miserable. Indeed, sin unrepented of makes one miserable, but the cross does not. If God has a design in afflicting his children to make them happy, they are not miserable, but God's afflicting them is to make them happy. Therefore, they are not miserable. Quote, "Happy is the man whom God correcteth," Job 5:17. The world counts them happy who can keep out of affliction, but Scripture calls them happy who are afflicted. How are they happy? Because they are more holy, Hebrews 12:10. Because they are more in God's favor, Proverbs 3:12. The goldsmith loves his gold when in the furnace, because they have more of God's sweet presence. Psalm 91:15. They cannot be unhappy who have God's powerful presence in supporting, and his gracious presence in sanctifying their affliction. Because the more affliction they have, the more degrees of glory they shall have. The lower they have been in the iron furnace, the higher they shall sit upon the throne of glory. The heavier in their crosses, the heavier shall be their crown. So then, if afflictions make a Christian happy, they cannot be miserable. 4. See the merciful providence of God to his children. Though they may be in the house of bondage, and smart by affliction, yet they shall not be hurt by affliction. What hurt does the fan to the corn? It only separates the chaff from it. Or the lance to the body, it only lets out the abscess. The house of bondage does that which sometimes ordinances will not. It humbles and reforms. Quote, "If they be holden in cords of affliction, he openeth their ear to discipline, and commandeth that they return from iniquity." Job 36:8 and 10. Oh, what a merciful providence it is that though God bruise his people, yet while he is bruising them, he is doing them good. It is as if one should throw a bag of money at another, which bruises him a little, but yet it enriches him. Affliction enriches the soul that yields the sweet fruits of righteousness. Hebrews 12:11. 5. If Israel be in the house of bondage, if the Lord deals so with his own children, then how severely will he deal with the wicked? If he be so severe with those he loves, how severe will he be to those he hates? If they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? Luke 13:31. If they that pray and mourn for sin be so severely dealt with, what will become of those that swear and break the Sabbath, and are unclean? If Israel be in the iron furnace, the wicked shall lie in the fiery furnace of hell. It should be the saddest news to wicked men to hear that the people of God are afflicted. Let them think how dreadful the case of sinners will be. Quote, judgment must begin at the house of God, and if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel? 1 Peter 4:17. If God thresh his wheat, he will burn the chaff. If God suffer castigation, the wicked shall suffer condemnation. If he mingle his people's cup with wormwood, he will mingle the wicked's cup with fire and brimstone. Use 2. If Israel be in the house of bondage, 1. Do not entertain too hard thoughts of affliction. Christians are apt to look upon the cross and the iron furnace as frightful things, and do what they can to shun them. Nay, sometimes to avoid affliction, they run themselves into sin. But do not think too hardly of affliction. Do not look upon it as though the multiplying glass of fear, through the multiplying glass of fear, the house of bondage is not hell. Consider the affliction comes from a wise God, who prescribes whatever befalls us. Persecutions are like apothecaries. They give us the physic which God, the physician, prescribes. Affliction has its light side as well as its dark one. God can sweeten our afflictions and candy our wormwood. As our sufferings abound, so does also our consolation. 2 Corinthians 1:5. Argerius dated his letters from the pleasant garden of the Leonine prison. God sometimes so revives his children in trouble that they had rather bear their afflictions than want their comforts. Why then should Christians entertain such hard thoughts of affliction? Do not look at its grim face, but at the message it brings, which is to enrich us both with grace and comfort. 2. If Israel be sometimes in the house of bondage, in an afflicted state, think beforehand of affliction. Say not as Job, quote, I shall die in my nest. In the house of mirth, think of the house of bondage. You that are now Naomi may be Mara, Ruth 1:20. How quickly may the scene turn, and the hyperbole of joy end in catastrophe. All outward things are given to change. The forethoughts of affliction would make us sober and moderate in the use of lawful delight, and it would cure a surfeit. Christ at a feast mentions his burial, a good antidote against surfeit. The forethought of affliction would make us prepare for it. It would make us off the world. It would put us upon the search of our evidences. We should see what oil we have in our lamps, what grace we could find, that we may be able to stand in the evil day. That soldier is imprudent who has his sword to whet when he is just going to fight. He who forecasts sufferings will have the shield of faith and the sword of the Spirit ready, that he may not be surprised. Three, afflictions come. Let us labor to conduct ourselves wisely as Christians, that we may adorn our sufferings, that is, endure with patience. Quote, "Take, my brethren, the prophets for an example of suffering, affliction, and patience." James 5:10. Satan labors to take advantage of us in affliction by making us either faint or murmur. He blows the coals of passion and discontent, and then warms himself at the fire. Patience adorns suffering. A Christian should say, as Jesus Christ did, quote, "Lord, not my will, but thy will be done." It is a sign the affliction is sanctified when the heart is brought to a sweet, submissive frame. God will then remove the affliction. He will take us out of the iron furnace.